Welcome to the Better Everyday podcast, where we're unlocking our best self one episode at a time. My name is Grace Garcia, and my co-host, my wonderful husband, David Garcia.
Hello.
So today I wanted to bring up the topic of ministry and kind of what we think that should look like. This is our opinion. I do want to preface that. I have a feeling we might ruffle some feathers. And please, if at any point in time you are agreeing with us or disagreeing with us or are grateful or watching and you have something to say, please comment below. We've been getting a lot of people reaching out to us, telling us they're watching it, which is awesome. But we'd love comments because I feel like that just kind of allows other people to comment. Mm-hmm. And so we'd love the engagement. It'll boost our videos. But ministry, specifically on what sacrifices are appropriate and maybe inappropriate in the realm of ministry. Mm-hmm. But I wanted to ask first kind of what your ministry experience looks like. Because we've both, at least for me, ever since I've been a baby, my parents have served in ministry. Mm-hmm. I want to know kind of what your history looks like.
So my history, I grew up basically in the church. I have pictures of me being a baby in the church. My mom was one of the women of faith in the house. My dad at the beginning was trying, but I think he had issues with the people in the churches. I guess he would call it the hypocrisy, the lack of being genuine, I guess. And, I think a lot of people even nowadays have the same issue, like, well, you guys tell us not to do this, but you guys are doing that. Mm-hmm. And so I think he got tired of that, and he just, it's not that he didn't believe in God. He always said that he believed in God. He just really disliked the churches. He disliked the people in the churches.
So he never served or?
No. No, I think he did serve, but it was like a small little bit. I was super young. I forget what it was, but he did serve, I think, for a little bit. And then my mom always served, and she was like a huge woman of faith. She was my rock in that regard.
She is a woman of faith.
Oh, yeah.
You said she was.
Oh, well, we're talking about the history, right?
That's true.
Yeah. But yeah, she was and she is a woman of faith, prayer warrior. She is always telling me, I'm praying for you guys and I'm fasting and I'm doing all this stuff. So she's always been that rock. And then me personally, I accepted God, Jesus in my heart when I was about 12 or 13. And around that time is when I started serving. And I remember I was going into junior high. So maybe it was younger than that, actually. Grade 6. So I must have been like 11.
Yeah.
So around that time. So grade 6, I go into junior high, and that's when we started, being able to mess around with like band, because band wasn't a thing in elementary. And so my mom told the worship leader at the time, oh, David's going into band. Like, maybe you might want to use him or whatever. And she told me, you're learning trumpet in band. And I'm like, okay, cool. I'll learn the trumpet. And I remember trying out for the trumpet. I think they had like a meet and greet or whatever. And I showed up to the meet and greet. I tried blowing the trumpet, and the teacher was like, I do not suggest you do the trumpet. It seems like you don't have the air for it. I would suggest like clarinet or something. And I think it was a piece of me that just like, bro, you don't tell me that I can't do something.
Yeah.
And so I was like, I'm going to stick with the trumpet. And so I learned the trumpet, and I played the trumpet at school and also at church. And I remember that was my first ministry, is being in the worship band. And I remember it was a small church, maybe not even 100 people. And I remember people used to go crazy when the trumpet started playing, because we never had a trumpet before. It was like a tiny, tiny church. So we had the most basic. We had like 2 or 3 singers. We had the drums, the bass, the guitar, and the keyboard, and that's it. Yeah. So when I started with the trumpet, and then a friend of mine started with the trombone. So we both started playing, and it was
nice.
was kind of cool. And then from there, I transitioned into keyboard. The worship leader started teaching me keyboard, and then she became really close to me, and she kind of, I guess in a way, mentored me, or at least walked with me. I remember she used to take me to like her soccer games and stuff. Like we used to do life together. Like, and so I got really close to her, and she eventually got me to start worship leading at a very young age. And again, like really small church, and so like little kids don't worship lead. I was maybe, I don't know, 14 or something like that when I started worship leading. And so like kids over there don't do that, whatever. And so honestly, it was just, I felt like a big fish in a small pond. And so like they made me feel like some sort of wonder kid. And at the time I loved it. I was like, all right, cool. Like,
Yeah.
but I also recognize, like this is from God, like there's, I don't know. It just seemed like that just, again, because had I been in LA, it would have been a completely different story. Like everybody and their mamas is a musician and a singer or whatever. But where I'm from, Winnipeg, Manitoba, like there wasn't many, right? And so I did that. I served in worship. The worship leader had to leave, I believe it was the country when I was like 17, 18, I think. And she was like, all right, cool. You're in charge of the worship team. And I'm like, I at that time, I remember there was a little bit of pain. I felt a little abandoned. And, but I'm like, okay, I guess I'm the guy. And I had not a lick of knowledge of how to lead a team. And so it was a very raw start. So started leading the team, led it up until 26 when I got married to you. Then I moved over here. And I remember that was a rough leave. Cried a lot, a lot of time and effort invested in the church and in the people, a lot of strong attachment. And when I got here, your mom wanted me to like jump right into the worship team as well, I think. And I was like, nah, I think the right thing to do is to just take 6 months off. I remember she would bug me ever so often, but I'm like, no, 6 months. And once the 6 months were up, then I started getting on the worship team. And then around the time that you were pregnant with Elijah, you've said it, we became youth pastors. Then did that. And then we transitioned from that church, came to our current church, RTLA. And I've been in the parking ministry. I've been a little bit in the worship, and I helped a little bit with the coordination. So that's my history. I've been serving, I guess, since the age of 11, 12. So I'm 34 now, so 22 years. Yeah.
It's a lot.
Yeah.
A long time. Mine's similar. I think, well, my dad became a pastor when my little brother was born. So I want to say I was about to be 6 or around there. And when he becomes a pastor, kind of everyone, it's a whole family ordeal. Like we all help out in anything that we can. And so I remember always being in the church, multiple services a week. Yeah, I helped out. But then I think my first ministry was the kids ministry. I love teaching. Started helping out. Then from teaching, youth leader, I did worship, youth pastor, like a little bit of everything.
Okay.
But I think, at least in my family, the principle of needing to serve was always there, like the importance of ministry, of honoring God, giving him his place. And I'm grateful because all I can say is I've heard like horrible stories of pastors' kids, like PKs, they are known.
Yeah.
And thank God, like my parents were awesome parents. Like they weren't perfect, but I would not have traded them anything for the world. In my eyes, they're the best parents. And so thankfully, God has like sustained all of us. We're still all believers. We're still all part of church. Like we're not turned off by the church.
Yeah.
And so I think just that in itself is a blessing and it's a good thing. But I think I saw, at least in my parents' marriage, that they were very close, which I'm grateful for, because I know I've heard stories where, again, pastors just focus all on the church,
Mm-hmm.
that either their marriage will strain or they'll lose their kids or all of it, right? And I think now as we are married, we've said that we're going to be 8 years in the summer. We have 2 kids,
Mm-hmm.
a 6-year-old and a 3-year-old. And this is the age, at least our 6-year-old, where he's aware. He can ask for things, ask for time. And so I think we hit a spot in our life where we have to evaluate, and we both love serving. You said when we came from our last church to RTLA, we said we're going to take some time off because we told you guys our transition. We were coming to a different church because we needed to heal. We needed to grow.
Mm-hmm.
And so we did take some time off, I think about 6 months as well.
Yeah.
But I think we love serving and we kind of get the itch and like, okay, let's go. But I think we've come into a place in our life, maybe it's maturity, maybe it's history, whatever it is, that we look at serving, I think, with a different perspective. And you've actually been bringing it up to other people of, I think, how ministry should look like. I think people all the time say ministry, your first ministry should be your family.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's something that's always said and people agree with it. I don't know anyone who will say, no, that's not true.
Yeah.
But so many people do that different.
Mm-hmm.
And I think to interpret it of what that looks like is different. And I think that's what, like, how should one do ministry if you have a family and are married, or even if just you're single? Like, what can be the risks of giving it, I don't want to say 100% because you should do it with excellence,
Mm-hmm.
but where you get so lost into it that you forget the bigger picture.
Yeah, I think from my experience, I remember when I was a youth pastor, I felt like I was giving it my all.
Mm-hmm.
And you would kind of call me out on it. And that was during a time where we didn't have the greatest communication. We didn't have the greatest relationship.
Yeah.
And so I remember you saying a lot of times, like, why are you giving that ministry so much effort? Why are you giving that ministry so much creativity? But at home, you don't do none of that. You come home and you basically say you're too tired. You come home and basically you don't want anything to do with us. But the moment that you see those kids at the youth ministry, you come alive and
Mm-hmm.
you just are there like full on. And from my experience, I think one thing, I think I've learned it from books, from hearing people speak, is especially coming from a man's perspective, a man is drawn towards where they feel respected because that's how they receive love. And so, granted, our relationship wasn't the greatest. I guess from my perspective, there was a lot of complaining at home, but it was rightfully so because I wasn't doing what I was supposed to do. But it was just like this hole that I was going down, and I was basically digging it myself. And so that heart of a man said, look for that respect somewhere. You need it, because without that respect, a man doesn't feel valued, doesn't feel loved, doesn't feel happy, really. And so I devoted my time with the youth ministry, and I was getting a lot of recognition. There was a lot of kids that were happy with the program, a lot of kids that were, that felt loved and they felt cared for, and that's fulfilling to me as well. And again, they reciprocated that love back, and we were just a great group. And but I was filling a void, really, something that I was kind of avoiding at home. I was avoiding the issues. I was avoiding the problems. I was basically throwing it under a rug, pretending like it wasn't there. I would look at you and be like, oh my gosh, here she goes complaining or whatever. And I felt at the moment right for putting ministry basically above family. And I'd kind of be like, why don't you understand? Or I'd kind of like turn it back on you and be like, well, how come you're not serving? You're not doing anything. Like, I'm actually doing work. And you could definitely, from that perspective, get things really twisted. And that's something that I learned with time is I was just avoiding. I needed to take care of things at home. There was things that there was obstacles, issues that I needed to take care of at home. But that's another thing is sometimes when the mountain seems too big, some men will run and they'll find that respect. They'll find that admiration somewhere else.
Yeah.
And I believe that's sometimes why men fall into the temptation of going into adultery, finding another woman, because it's like, oh, I'm getting at home is complaints, and this woman here at work or whatever is giving me the admiration that I've been seeking for. But in the reality, if you peel back all the layers, it's no, dude, you're not dealing with the things at home. You are the man, you are the leader at home. You have all these issues. And it's basically like if you were in this living room and it was a mess and you come into the house and you're like, I don't want to deal with it. I'm going to go somewhere else where it's nicer. And it's like, no, that's your home. You need to take care of all that. But some men, I guess, get overwhelmed, or we get overwhelmed. And I remember at the moment, I was just like, I was just like, I don't want to see it. Blinders on, deflecting back on you. But now, so what I believe now is the family unit needs to be protected. The family unit needs to be taken care of. If there's issues at home, then they can't be ignored. They need to be talked about. They need to be worked through. And like we realized, if we need a third person's help, go seek it. We did it. We did it twice. And it helped us a lot. It helped us work through the things because sometimes we get too emotional, and this is generalized for us and for any couple really. We get too emotional and we can't see clearly. We have our own points of view, and when we start fighting, it's just like, no, I'm entrenching in my point of view. You're the wrong one, and it's vice versa, right? Yeah. And sometimes you need that third person perspective to like bring clarity to the situation to help you work through the issues, and then you realize, oh, like it's not what I thought, And a lot of times when we went through the counseling, there was a lot of revelation in between us in regards to like where you were actually coming from, what you actually felt. And then same thing with me. So I definitely think that the family unit needs to come first. And that's what I believe I'm living out right now.
Yeah, you've definitely grown from that. And I do think the family unit is so important. I'd say that before we disciple anyone else, like to make a disciple, the Great Commission, it says like teach people what Jesus has commanded you, right? Like, go and teach people and baptize them. If you can't teach your wife or your kids, if you can't do that to the people closest to you, I don't know, like how do you think you're going to do it to people around you? But even further, like Paul tells Timothy, those with high positions like a deacon or overseer in the church, like get your home in order. Because again, how are you supposed to take care of people, their heart, love on them, if you can't take care of the hearts of those that you love or claim to love? I think it's so easy to get lost in the lingo because the church, that there's a need, right? Big church, small church, like every church could use the extra set of hands. And that we're called and have gifts and talents, like 100%. And so I think we can place the call of, I want to say serving in a church, because ministry, we even said like our family could be our ministry. Right. Above that they do neglect in the name of ministry, your family, or you sacrifice. Do I think serving in a church is going to require sacrifice. I do, but the sacrificing your wife or your kids or husband, vice versa, I don't think God calls us to neglect them.
And that's the crazy thing that a lot of, well, I'm saying a lot, but a good amount of Christians believe that like that's the way, and they're proud of it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, no, my family comes second. Like the work for the Lord is first.
Yeah,
and it's a badge of honor for them. But it's like, it's kind of like what I was saying before. Like, you're running, cool, go ahead, run.
mm-hmm.
I think some people might have the perspective of, I'm running, my kids are going to see me run and they're going to want to run too.
Get inspired.
Yes.
Yeah.
And same thing, they're going to be running, and they're going to look back one day and realize my family's not there. My kids have turned on me. My wife has turned on me. They all resent me. They all resent the church. And the crazy thing is, one time I was in a, what's it called? An ordination where somebody gets named the pastor.
Mm-hmm.
And this guy had 2 kids, and they brought the 2 kids up front. And they told the kids, we want to thank you, to the kids, we want to thank you for giving your parents this offering. And now I want you to understand that you're not going to see them a lot.
How old were the kids? Not that it matters, but
12 and younger than 12.
wow. Where they're needed the most.
Yes. And like,
That's sad.
couldn't believe it. And again, they wear it as a badge of honor. And so the question really then comes like, if there is a need, I think that's something that I battle with, because it's, like you were saying, when we transitioned over from our old church to this church, we took 6 months off. We believed that it was the right thing to do. And it was the right thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
We were going through a transition. We were working on our marriage, working on our family. But me and you talked about it. We would drive home from church and we'd be twitching, be like, oh, we could be doing this and we could be doing that, you know? And we would just, like, the potential was there, right, for us to do something.
Yeah.
But the timing wasn't. And that's something that I was actually thinking about today, was like, everybody has the potential. It doesn't mean that right now is the time to unleash that potential, though.
Mm.
Like, you think about David when he was anointed king. He didn't go around being like, I'm the king, I'm the king, I'm the king. He waited for the process.
Yeah.
And he went through a long process. And so just because we can doesn't mean that we should. But I do battle with that, because I'm like, there is a need. And what if I don't see anybody else filling that need? Should I be filling that need? And there's like that tug. But I think there's also a hero complex in us, where we're like, we're the only ones that can do it.
Yeah.
And it's like, no. There's more than enough people that could fill those shoes. But there's definitely a hero complex. Like, I was hearing this TikTok reel where this guy's talking about David and Goliath. And he was like, oh, many people see themselves as David. But the reality is, none of us are David. Because David represents Jesus and Goliath represents death, right? And so he's like, none of us are David. We're all the Israelites that were too scared to get into the battle.
Wow.
And so we always have that hero complex of like, no, I need to be the David. I'm going to conquer it. And again, we can go in deep into like the psychology of it, of like, what is it that you're looking for to be the hero? Why is exactly are you twitching? Like, me and you had conversations in regards to like, you would kind of put yourself in check and you would ask me like, David, like, I feel this and I should be doing this. Do you think that's out of pride?
Mm-hmm.
You know, and we would have those conversations. And I think they were super healthy conversations, because you were like, I need accountability. I need a different perspective. I need clarity. And we need to put ourselves in checks, because if we want to be the hero, why do we want to be the hero? Is it for the respect, the admiration? Is it for a stage and a spotlight? Is it for the followers? Like, why is it?
Yeah.
Or is it genuinely, I want to help people, you know? And if you want to help people, I truly believe like you can take care of your family and help people on the side.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be this grand, like this whole ministry or organization or like this whole show or whatever. Like, do life with people. And as you walk with them, you'll be able to bless them and they'll bless you back.
Mm-hmm. I completely agree with you. I think a lot of it stems from that hero complex, or like, I can, so I should.
Mm-hmm.
I was reading the parenting book that you told me to, that I should read. And in there, she definitely made me think it was the mother speaking. And she said how she was asked so many times to serve, and she'd say, no, no. Like, she got used to and practiced saying no a lot. Now she's writing this book where she's older, her kids are grown.
Mm-hmm.
And she says she has the best relationship with her kids. Like, they're friends now. Now she's enjoying the fruit of her labor. And now she feels like her calling and her purpose is so much bigger. Like, now she's writing books and traveling and speaking into women's lives. And she said, you have to sacrifice. It's what we've been talking about throughout our whole podcast. I feel like there's this recurring theme of delayed gratification and
Mm-hmm.
self-control.
Yeah.
The now that might feel good and be good in that moment and might get fruit, but on the other side of that is so much bigger than we can ever expect.
Yeah.
If we just wait and keep chipping. And it made me think how I call ourselves young. I think we're pretty young.
Mm-hmm.
How so many young people are involved in the church, which is an awesome, beautiful thing.
Mm-hmm.
I think for so long we desired to see that. But I wonder if we skewed it so far one way that we kind of took that baton from the elders, because we have the energy, we have the drive, we have the passion. We're like, now. Because I think for one point it was just the elders, right? And like, just with any in life, I feel like we swing it one way and then we swing it the other way. And it's hard for us humans to find a nice balance. That we took the place from the elders where they're no longer like speaking into us. They're no longer walking with us. They're no longer, because we're like, oh no, we could do it. I could do it. Like, we take that place. It could be wrong. It could be no one stepping up. But I just think if we decide to wait for our season, as I'm talking about as married with littles, right?
Yeah.
At least for now. And if we wait and get molded and build our family to what God truly intended it to be, how much more we can then speak with authority, speak life, show our fruit. It's like, look what God did in the later season. But so many of us don't want to wait there, that we're so many people 20 years married now look back and say, oh yeah, most of it was rough. Like, most of our ministry was, just trying to get it together. Now I've got it together, or whatever. So I'm telling myself, because I'm serving, but I think I'm being pickier on what I say yes to, because I'm reminding myself, okay, this is the season. My kids are little. I'll have the opportunity. But I think so many of us get like FOMO, or what if that time doesn't come? And we have a feeling it's going to be a fleeting opportunity. And what if, okay, when I'm like 40, there's not that opportunity there, and we're just kind of like itched to do it now, not knowing what the future holds. And I think that's scary for a lot of people.
Yeah, and I think it comes down to the question, what is the price that you want to pay?
Mm-hmm.
I think either choice, you're paying a price. You choose to do ministry right now, and we're talking about families that have littles. You choose to do ministry right now. There's a chance that you're sacrificing your family.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, when you're lying on your deathbed, are you going to be able to look back at your life and be proud of that? Or the opposite of that, you focus on your family, You still do ministry, but you budget your time. We talked about that before. Budgeting is not just for money, but it's also for time.
Mm-hmm.
You budget it. This is how I can serve right now in this season. Putting my family first. And again, when you're at your deathbed, you're going to look back and say, I'm proud of the life that I lived.
Yeah.
And it exactly, you hit it on the head, delayed gratification. Some of us twitch. And I'll always go back to the American culture, the platforms, the social media, the likes, like all that plays a huge influence in us.
Mm-hmm.
And again, you said FOMO, like, yeah, we get the FOMO, like we can right now. We have the energy, we can do it.
Mm.
You know, the hero complex. And we're influenced heavily to sometimes sacrifice our family. And I think that you can bless people, you can help people. But how much value is it to you when your kids end up resenting you? You know, and then there's probably people thinking like, well, can't you do both? Well, yeah, it comes down to budgeting. So right now,
Yeah.
you're helping out with the Connect Group ministry. So you meet once a week,
Mm-hmm.
and you do some like extracurricular planning and stuff. But like, do you feel like right now you have a good balance of life, ministry, work balance?
I think I do.
Mm-hmm. And you're basically saying with that, like, this is what I can do right now.
Yeah. And part of me wants to do more. Like I always want to do more.
And that you could do more, you could.
Mm-hmm.
100% you could. You could be teaching. You could be helping with different ministries. Like you'd be a huge asset.
Yeah.
But again, it goes back to just because you can doesn't mean that you should.
Mm-hmm. And because I said earlier in this podcast, there is sacrifice that needs to be made if you're going to serve in a church.
Mm-hmm.
It's not going to be, the Christian life is not going to be, oh, don't wait for a perfect moment to serve where life is all perfect, where, you know, you're good. It's not going to be comfy and easy and like, this is fun, like rainbows and butterflies. I don't want that point to get across because that's not the point I'm trying to make.
Mm-hmm.
But I do think there's sacrifice, but it's sacrifice with intention, sacrifice for that God wants you to make, not that you yourself are implementing on yourself because society, what we said, for the wrong reasons, right? For the hero complex, for your pride, that you want to, because I think it is sacrifice saying no. Like, I really want to do it. This opportunity is brought to me. They think I can do it. Say no, for me, that's sacrifice.
Well, what do you feel like you're sacrificing?
That opportunity, that moment for a later one. I'm sacrificing my feelings, my emotions.
There you go.
Yeah.
That's what I'm trying to get
at.
Yeah, like what is it that you're sacrificing?
Mm-hmm.
Because it's not just the opportunity that you're sacrificing. There's feelings behind what you're sacrificing.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And hopefully we didn't lose any people that are not married. Because I want to make this point with ministry in general. We were just talking about littles and being married. But I think I saw, again, I love my family, my parents. Like, I love them. And I wouldn't be who I was. They instilled so many awesome foundational like principles of following God, of loving God, of serving people. Like, every time, I love it. Every time anyone remembers my mom and my dad, like, they talk about their love for people, the sacrifices they made, the generosity they did.
Mm-hmm.
I love that. But I think there are areas where I looked and I'm like, okay, of growth. One of them being is, in the name of ministry, there's unhealthy habits that can accumulate. Mm-hmm. I'm just going to throw one out there that I can think of is, oh, we have to serve, so let's just pick up like drive through. And like we do. We're not perfect. Like, we do that.
Okay.
But in the name of ministry, and if you're serving like your whole life, like, that's a lot of drive through that it's like, I don't think God asked you to sacrifice in that way.
And you're talking about drive-through fast food.
Yes, drive-through fast food. Sorry. And yeah, so in the name of ministry, it's I'm running busy. I have to go serve. I'm going to just pick up drive-through McDonald's or whatever it is. And you start sacrificing your health, where it would be a bigger sacrifice if you meal prepped for the whole week knowing you had to serve.
Right.
That's a bigger sacrifice.
Yeah.
But so many people are like, oh, we're doing the ministry, you know? And so they'll do drive-through or stay up really late at night and wake up super duper early, then sacrificing their sleep. Then you get like, or you pile up too much on your plate in the name of ministry that you start getting anxiety or so much stress. And I think maybe we're not taught of like what is the right way to sacrifice, like how God wants us to sacrifice. Because I personally don't think he'll ask you to sacrifice, how we said, your kids, your marriage, or your health. The Bible states that now the Holy Spirit, like now that your body is his, like Jesus paid you with a price. And so honor your body because it is now a temple. But again, in the name of ministry, all these things are being done because like it's a sacrifice. But again, doing it the right way is a bigger sacrifice that we're just not wanting to do because it's hard.
Yeah.
It's hard to meal prep. It's hard to budget our time with our sleep. Like it's hard. But I've seen so many, like, again, my dad's a pastor and he has had so many pastor friends die of heart attacks, diabetes, high blood pressure, my mom of cancer. Not saying that was the cause of it, but I wonder if we did ministry in a healthy way, if so much of that could be alleviated.
And talking about ministry, you said one thing that said, you said, God will never ask you to sacrifice your children. But there is one story where God asked Abraham to sacrifice his kid.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think about that? Like, because I think about it. Okay, so he didn't end up going through with it.
Yeah.
Abraham was obedient, and he was about to go sacrifice his kid.
Yeah.
And it was almost like God was giving him a heart check because God gave him a promise, right?
Yeah.
And so I think the test was, do you love the promise more than you love the one who gave you the promise, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so we see family as a blessing. We see our children as a blessing. But a part of me kind of battles with that is like, could our family, could what we prayed for, let's say I prayed for my wife, I prayed for my kids, like I've always wanted them, I have them now. Could they become, or could they be on a pedestal that they shouldn't be on? Where God is like, I gave you that, and I'm glad that you're happy with it, but now you're putting it on a pedestal, and like you shouldn't be doing that. Do you think there's any situation where God kind of like checks you in that regard? Like, okay, cool, you're protecting your family, but now you're starting to like love your family a little bit too much, where you're like, you're not willing to do nothing. Mm-hmm. And do you think there's any situation where God's like, sacrifice your family? I want to put you to the test.
I don't think he'd say sacrifice your family. I think there'll be moments you need to sacrifice, like saying you have to be with them every single night and not do like a church meeting or a church service. I don't think that's what we're talking about here. Like, no, you can't say no to anything if it's going to take you rid of your family. I think where it's majority now, you give your family the leftovers. But telling your kids, hey, there's going to be this event, I'm going to go, like once in a while, that's completely fine. If the majority of the time you are, how we said, discipling your kids, they should be your first disciples. If you're teaching them the way of God, if they see God modeled through you because they do life with you. Mm-hmm. I think before, of course, it can be a pedestal, like any good thing. If it replaces God's place, could be a pedestal. I think that's why faith is first. Like your relationship with God should be 100%. But I think God has always been referenced, and that's why I think how I said those two, family and kids, are so important, because he's always referenced as a bridegroom, right? We're his bride, he's the groom, he's coming back for us. That is how we said the marriage relationship. And as a father. And I think he of all people knows that father-son kid relationship is so important too. Will he do like testing of the heart? I think if that, what that'll look like, it varies person to person, depending on what they need to give up, what their idols are, what their strongholds in their heart are. But that he will be like, okay, then like go through with like sacrifice your family, because it's no, I don't think that'll.
Okay, and so here's another question: if family comes first,
After faith.
yes, after faith, and so that means that you can't serve as much. You serve here and there. Let's say for you example, you have a meeting every Monday, and you do the planning and stuff. So the question is then, how do you model ministry to your kids?
That's a good question. I think they see me serve, and they've asked, "Where are you going, mommy?" And I tell them, "This is why I'm doing it." There's even times where we bring them to the meetings. Not so long ago, that rare, but we've brought them to the meetings. They're like, "Daddy and mommy has a meeting," and we explain it to them. And I think that's them seeing it, but I never want it to be where like, "Mom, you're going again," because it's so much that they start resenting me leaving. It's that right now it's at that curiosity, like, "Where are you going?" "Oh, okay." But if it ever gets to like, "Where are you going again? You always leave," or something like that, that's where I really have to like do a heart check and say, are they valid? Like, am I leaving so much that now they're dreading it? And I think once they get older, involving them in that, I think you can definitely have family time. Like, family time doesn't mean like you four, in our case, it's four of us, like you four alone, like it has to look a certain way, right? And so once they're older, I think that's what my parents did. That helped us is it's a family thing. Like then we help out. And when they're old enough, like, "Come, you're going to help me out in church. This is what you can do." I love that the serve week they had last year. We're like, "Oh, let's take Elijah. And he had fun.
Yeah.
I think in his head, he's like, "I'm spending time with my parents. I'm having fun." And he's seeing, oh, like we're cleaning up the community. So there are ways that you can do that. Still serving. I don't want people to get the idea of, no, serving is completely out.
Yeah. And I think you've always said it, like parents take their kids to like Sunday school, or they take their kids to youth, and they're like, I remember when we were youth pastors, their parents used to come up to us like, "Hey, I'm having problems with this kid, like with my kid, like please fix him." And what would you say? He spends most of the time with you. You fix him. He's with us one day a week for like 2 hours.
I remember that. I forgot I said that, but yeah.
And it's true. So what I'm trying to get at here is like the teaching of ministry happens at home first.
Yeah.
Teaching them, making them aware of it. And then, because the other thing that I want to say is ministry is not just within the four walls of the church.
Yeah.
And so teaching them about ministry, what does it mean to be in ministry? What does it mean to serve? And then after teaching them, then modeling that, like we walk with people. We walk with people all the time. We have our parents group. We have Nate and Carrie. Like we have our groups, right? We walk with people, and for the kids to see like, oh, there's moments where they have like deep conversation and they're helping each other or they're praying for each other. Like that's ministry. And I think just opening up that horizon or expanding that view of ministry is not just within the four walls.
Yeah.
Like that the four walls of the church need help within those four walls. Yeah, of course. But it's not just that. The purpose and meaning of ministry and serving is to help the people in need, to serve the people that need liberation, like the people that, what does it say? The orphans as well. Like there's a list of people that you should be helping, and that's ministry.
Yeah.
And so I think it starts at home, teaching them, and then being the example, and then also explaining to them, hey, I'm part of this ministry, like, and like you said, like when they're older, like, hey, come with me, like you're gonna help me,
Mm-hmm.
you know. And I think that's great.
Yeah. And I've seen scenarios where parents send their kids to private school, Christian private school, and they don't want to have anything to do with religion,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like you see scenarios where the parents are Christian and they just think by being in a Christian school or by me taking them to church. And that's not necessarily the case. And I don't want, I'm like trying to explain myself because I don't want people to get the wrong message. I don't think we can save the kids. Like, do I think my kid right now is Christian? Like, no.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's going to be a point in his life where he has to make that decision.
Right.
Salvation is personal. It's your relationship with God. Do I think a family has a huge role in that? Of course. I think my job as a parent, I feel like it's becoming a parent like podcast now, but my job as a parent is to disciple my kid and make it easier so when the Holy Spirit comes, like I've laid that foundation because it's the proverb says, teach a child in the ways of God and he will not depart from it.
Mm-hmm.
Right. But so many people are passive. And so it's like, oh, because my kid's in this school, because my kid's in this church. And if they don't see it at home, and if they don't experience it at home, because even then we can be Christian and they just see us doing it. But they're not experiencing it from our love or our interactions with the kids and how we shape them as siblings to love on each other, then for them it's a faraway concept that they can easily walk away from.
Right.
But I feel like now it's like turned into like a parenting podcast. And so I want to bring it back into the sacrifice point. So we do think, besides, I want to know your opinion because I told you those 3 things that God won't be asking, which is your marriage, your kids, and I think health, because I've seen that.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Would you add anything else to the list? Do you think that's a good list?
I guess now you could add in the times that we're in, mental health.
Mm.
And I would also like to say, like, this doesn't just pertain to church, but it pertains, like, let's say to the go-getters and companies and corporations. Like sometimes people like, hey, I'm going to become a CEO and I'm going to sacrifice my kids because of it, you know?
Oh, yeah.
You hear a lot of those stories. But yeah, mental health would be another one, I think. But that one is just having accountability, having people that check in, you doing your own self-awareness, self-checks, like, where am I at? Why am I feeling this way? And, I mean, to be honest, there's a lot of softness right now in our society. And so at any given moment, somebody, I don't want to sound insensitive. Yeah, that's the word. But I feel like for any little thing, people are like, oh, my life is crumbling down. Like, it's over. I have this and I have that and I can't. And I feel like people have lost that championship spirit of, like, the reality is there's a lot of hard times in our life.
Mm-hmm.
And so we've lost that championship spirit. We've lost the tapping into the stream, which is God.
Yeah.
There's a verse in the Bible, I believe it's in Jeremiah. There's also another version in Psalms where it says, like, you'll be like a tree planted next to the river. Although heat comes and although winds come, your leaves don't stop giving green leaves and fruit because you're planted, your roots are next to the river. And that's the reality of life.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there's so much that comes our way to try to mess us up, to uproot us. But as long as our roots are into the stream, just keep going. Trust.
Yeah.
But I don't want to make it about that. But like, yeah. So I would say, I guess, mental health. And that really comes down to like if you have higher ups, let's say like you're not the senior pastor, and maybe the senior pastor's like, I need you to do this and that and blah, 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 blah. And like not really caring for you as a person, but more of what you can do. That's something that you need to keep in check.
Yeah. And a few years ago, there was this thing happening where a lot of pastors were committing suicide.
Mm-hmm.
It's so sad, but in the name of ministry, I wonder if they thought, I need to take all of my people's burdens. I need to stay quiet because I'm the pastor. I need to look like I have it all together.
Yeah.
I can't confess these dark thoughts because society, this Christian Western religion that we created says I have to have it all together as a pastor.
Mm-hmm.
And so in the name of ministry, they're sacrificing their mental health. And I like what you said about the tree planted in water, because how we've said, like, before we're called to do anything, we need to have a good relationship with God. Like, faith comes first. Because the reality is, we've said this before, it's two sides to every coin. It's going to be hard. Ministry is going to be hard, doing it the right way and sacrificing yourself in vain.
Mm-hmm.
It's, do you want to confess? Because I think even we've lost that practice of being honest and saying, no, I can't right now. In this season, I'm choosing to, it sounds weak. Or confessing when we sin, or confessing when we can't handle it, whatever it may be. We've lost that. That's hard, but also not doing it and have the anxiety and the depression like slowly start to rise. That's hard. Or how we said, saying no, sacrificing our feelings when we want to do certain things right now, and waiting until our kids get older, till our marriage gets more sturdier, until we have the time. How we said with food, like I feel like there's so many decisions. There's a fork in the road. There's one that Western civilization is taking, and it's in the name of sacrifice. But I wonder if we took the harder road, the one less traveled by, if that reward will be so much greater. Because if you think about it, the Bible says that if people reward us, if people congratulate us, that's your reward.
Yeah.
Like, that's all you're getting.
Mm-hmm.
But if we don't seek that recognition, like, God is in heaven, like, waiting to give us that and like, he's going to give us that validation and affirmation we've been looking for, that we're looking to fill and no one can fill. But that comes through disappointing a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
Because the plain religion didn't look like what they expected it to look like.
Yeah, and I think it comes down to, in my opinion, being genuine. I think this whole Western Christianity, you look at these mega churches and you look at all the social media and all the marketing and stuff. It's just like, yeah, it's a lot of bells and whistles. It's a lot of lights.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just like, be genuine in your serving.
Yeah.
Are you serving for the right reason? And only you and God know that. Like, and that's where like the self-checks come in. And in our case, like, we do checks with each other. And I'm super happy, like, when you go, hey, like, this is what I'm thinking. I want to do this. Do you think that's prideful?
Mm-hmm.
And like, that's genuine. Like, you're basically saying in between the lines, like, I really want to help in this way.
Yeah.
But I just want to make sure I'm doing it for the right reasons. And that's so important. To be genuine. I don't need the praise. I don't need the platform. I don't need the titles. I don't need to be on no social media.
Mm-hmm.
I don't need the lights, the microphone, or nothing. Like, I want to help for the sake of helping.
Yeah.
I want to help because God is looking at these people that I'm looking to help, and he loves them.
Mm.
And if I can help them, I will.
Yeah.
And I think that's what it comes down to, being genuine. And a lot of people need to do self-checks, heart checks of like, am I doing this for the right reason?
And it's hard because there's not a lot of people around us asking those questions out loud, at least.
Mm-hmm.
So we feel like we're paving this, right? Or maybe we can start up this conversation, because in the Bible, it's different. Like Paul, like the people serving, it was a sacrifice. No one liked what they were doing. They were being jailed. They were like, it's different. Now you serve and you get, oh, thank you for your service. Like you get praised.
You got the green rooms.
Yeah. Or even if you don't, like it means a lot.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And back then it looked completely different. And that's why I think sometimes it could be dangerous jumping in when you're not ready, because the perfect way, I think, to test your heart is when you're serving your husband, when you're serving your kids. Because to be honest, well, your husband can give you the praise that you want, but like when it's a thankless job, when it's mundane, when you're not, it's not being posted on Instagram and social media.
Yeah.
When you're not getting an award for it. When I am doing my laundry and I can do it with a happy heart, and this is my service to God, to my family, then it's like, okay, I'm ready for the next step. When I can like serve you and not post it and not like brag about it, and it's just for your eyes only, and I'm not looking for anything else, like I feel like then it's the next step. But that's why it's so important to see if you can serve in those situations first, because then from there, it can easily get twisted. You can easily lose yourself. And it's prideful to think, when I get there, no, I'll be ready. Because even then, we'll make mistakes.
Yeah.
And it's just hoping that you are after God's heart and God's will, that you tell on yourself and ask those hard questions, or you have people around you to love you, to like bring you back to earth.
I think character must be built before greatness is achieved. If the character is not there, your foundation's cracking every single time.
Yeah.
And the way that I see it is all the people that win the lottery. The statistic is like crazy of how many of the people that win the lottery go bankrupt because they did not have the characteristic. They did not have the wisdom. They did not have the knowledge to be able to sustain such success. And in the same way, when people get fast-tracked into fame, they didn't have the character. The character was not built.
Yeah.
And so they did not last. And the same thing in the church. When the character is not built and the timing is fast-tracked, those are the people that you hear the stories about. And so we all need to be okay. And this is almost like cliche now in the church, but trust the process.
Yeah.
Trust the process, go through the process, be willing to go through the process, be willing to be molded by God, be willing to go through the obstacles, because there's going to be obstacles, challenges, and tests. The only way that you know that you're ready for the next level is you go through a test. And through all those things, the character is going to be built. It's like that verse I think it's in Romans, if I'm not mistaken, where like, be joyful in the suffering, because the suffering produces endurance, endurance produces...
And James too.
In James? Yeah. It's a chain of events that happens, and it's the character needs to be built. And so that's another thing. And that's kind of like what I got from that book, the parenting book, where she's like, you know what? Some of us just need to be okay with, my family is my ministry right now. And through my ministry of my family, I'm going to learn so much that by the time I'm actually putting in time within the four walls of the church, I'm going to have character, because I'm dealing with little kids. So I'm definitely going to have the patience. I'm going to be able to handle hard situations. Like, there's a list of things that you're learning along the way, that you're basically building a resume for when you are ready to devote time into the church, maybe when your kids are out of the house, or maybe they're in college or whatever, or maybe they're self-sustained now, they're 16, 17 years old, they don't even want to hang out with you anymore. You get to hang out with them once a week or whatever, but you build the character, you build the resume, and it's like, okay, like it also makes your roots go out. And we talked about roots in the stream, but also just roots in your identity in Christ. Because a lot of people, they get lost in the fame and the wanting of fame, and they don't have an identity. They're looking for one.
Yeah.
And they're looking for one through admiration from people. And they think the admiration is giving them an identity. But we go back to the same thing of those people like are wearing a mask, and they think that they're receiving love, but they are not receiving love. It's the mask that they're wearing that is receiving love. The moment they take a mask off, it's a whole different story.
Yeah.
And so I think character is a key component of being able to serve in ministry.
Yeah, because those same people, once they start serving in ministry and don't have the character built, is someone complains and they're hurt, so they leave church.
Mm-hmm.
Or their jobs get switched, they're hurt, they leave church. Or they didn't get the praise that they wanted, they're hurt, they leave church.
Or they get the praise that they wanted and more of a reason for them to devote more time into ministry.
Yeah.
And less time at home.
Yeah. And so it's definitely a good thing serving in church. And I hope we're not steering anyone away from not serving church, because there's so much good things you can reap. But just like Solomon, the wisest man, said that it could be done in vain, I feel like. And there's a season for everything.
Mm-hmm.
And he mentions that. And so be very careful of which season you're in, what God is calling you to do. How you said, check your heart, ask people around you. Make sure it's not emotion driven or need based, because God doesn't need just you. He needs you to be healthy.
Yeah.
He needs you, and he desires you to get the most out of your season of serving. But the society that we're in can definitely construe us and confuse us and think it's now or never, or they need me, or feed your ego. And so just have those honest conversations and decide to be better every day, even though it might not be the most popular road traveled.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of the message I wanted to get today, that there is a sacrifice to ministry, but make sure it's the one that's least traveled, the one that's going to produce bigger fruit in the later season.
Yeah.
And so I think that's kind of something that, man, maybe I should do merch or a Post-it note, because writing all the things and say, what is going to produce the biggest fruit in the long run? That's what we're looking for.
Mm-hmm.
Something that can be sustained. And I think that's all we have for today. We just want to thank you guys again for listening, because an hour, 45 minutes, whatever it is of your time is valuable, and we recognize that. And so thank you so much. Please, if you agree with us or disagree, let us know. We're not claiming to know it all. I always tell people, change my mind. I'm someone who I can admit when I'm wrong or change my thought. But I hope you guys see that we're passionate about learning. We're passionate about getting better. And so this is just a little bit of our heart to yours. And until the next episode, we'll see you later. Bye.
See ya.